basics of computers and hardware. Now, most of you may already be aware of some concepts within this lesson. If you do, bravo. But I would still suggest you continue to watch. Maybe consider it a workout for your brain. Because in all honesty, I think getting the basics right is very important before we proceed to core informatics components. And also from my experience, I wasn't aware of a lot of things in computers and hardware before I started my informatics degree. So let's begin. Merriam-Webster defines computer as one that computes, is specifically a programmable, usually electronic device that can store, retrieve, and process data. It is essentially a machine that may use electronic components and instructions to perform calculations, complex tasks, process text, manipulate data, and signals. This is an overall structure. Computer, which is a machine, contains some sort of a storage capacity for data. It mainly processes given data and, as and when instructed, retrieve or store it. There are two important components that make these functioning possible. One is the program, also called software, that tells computer what and how to do. And the other is all of the physical environment or hardware that includes the necessary parts of computer. Computer technology has evolved from huge room-sized electronic calculators developed during World War II to palm-sized machines available to virtually everybody. Today, computers are everywhere, from grocery stores and movie theaters to the power grid, from the bedside alarm clock to automobile dashboard, and from infusion pumps to heart monitors, patient record systems, radiology and diagnostic devices, and all kinds of machines in the operating room. Computers are employed so widely that today's society could not function without them. The basic hardware of computer composes its architecture, which is things like circuits, microchips, processors, memory, and cards. Internal devices, those that are inside the computer case but are not part of its architecture, like internal hard drive or cooling system, USB connector, etc. And finally, external devices that are attached or linked to a computer, like keyboard, mouse, printer, etc. As a requirement, the box of any computer contains a motherboard, which is a thin, flat sheet made of a firm, non-conducting material on which the internal components of computer are mounted. The central processing unit, or CPU, and slots to add more components are all here. Memory, which is the supercritical part of any computer, refers to the electronic storage devices or chips on the motherboard. There are three key types of memory: read-only memory or ROM, random access memory or RAM, and cache. Read-only memory or ROM is a form of permanent storage in the computer. It carries instruction that allows the computer to be started and to perform essential tasks. Its programming is stored by the manufacturer and cannot be changed by the users. This means that the data and programs on ROM can only be read by computers and cannot be erased or altered by users. Important to note here is that the ROM storage is not erased when computer is turned off. Random access memory or RAM refers to the working memory used for primary storage. It is a form of temporary storage that can be accessed, used, changed, and written on repeatedly. It is kind of like a work area available for all processing applications. So for instance, when you click on a program like Microsoft Word, the computer loads it on RAM where it can be accessed quickly. While you work on the program, it saves some until you formally save it to a permanent storage device. Everything on RAM is lost when the computer is switched off. Cache is a smaller form of RAM. Its main purpose is to speed up processing by saving frequently accessed programs. To understand the function of a cache, consider an example of a hospital unit of the past where infusion pumps were not frequently used. In those days, the pumps were used only for critical infusions, which was rare. So they were kept in central supply warehouse of hospitals. Now, if a nurse needed a pump, they would have to go all the way to central warehouse to get it, and once used, they would go back to return it. Until the use of pumps was infrequent, its storage in the central warehouse was okay. In fact, it was a good system. This is like a computer without a cache. But as the nursing practice evolved, pumps are now used for almost every patient. Now the new plan is to have a storage area within the unit so that when needed, the machines are available nearby. Doing so greatly reduced the time needed to access a pump. Rarely used devices can still be stored at central warehouse, but frequently needed items are kept in a nearby storeroom, which is a cache in computer language. So cache deals with programs that are frequently used. To do any task, computers must have a way of receiving commands and data from outside, which is called input, and a way of reporting out its work called output. Most common input devices include keyboard and mouse. Other input devices used by nurses include touchscreen, barcode scanner, etc. In terms of medical devices, electrodes that we place on patient's body, oximeter, and imaging scanners are all examples of input controls. Output devices are defined as any equipment that translates the computer information into something readable by people or by other machines. It could be in the form of text, sound, graphics, or signals. Common output devices are monitor screens, speakers, and printers. Within the healthcare, infusion pumps are an excellent example of output device because they show number on the screens and also infuse fluid into patient's body. The overall storage of a computer include main memory, which we already talked about, and external devices on which programs and data are saved. The most common storage device is computer hard drive. Other devices commonly found are CDs, DVDs, USB flash drives, and cloud storage. Cloud storage is an extension of the online storage media where the data is essentially in commercial network servers that communicate through the internet. Computer stores all the data in binary format. Binary means 2 and a binary digit has two possible values, 0 or 1. Consider them as an on and off switch with just two options, on equals 1 and off equals 0. Binary digits are called bits. Bits are grouped in 8 to form bytes, the same way as you see here. Each group of 8 digits here is called a byte. In terms of storage size, the smallest unit you may see is a kilobyte, which is about the size of 1/3 of a typed page. Slightly larger than kilobyte is megabyte, which is almost the size of 30 seconds of a low definition video. Then comes the gigabyte, followed by terabyte, petabyte, and so on. The basic operations of a CPU are called cycles. There are 4 types of cycles: fetch, decode, execute, and store. It takes time for a computer to perform each of these functions. The speed of a CPU is measured by the cycles it performs per second. 1 million cycles per second is called 1 megahertz, and a billion cycles per second is called 1 gigahertz. In general, the higher the speed possessed by a CPU, the faster and more powerful the computer. CPU speeds are very fast, but because computers perform many billions of cycles per second, they can be slow if their processors have insufficient speed. So this is all that you need to know about basics of computers and hardware.